Hello, and welcome to the second episode of BCTV. I'm your host, Brian Capozzi, and with me today we have Mike Almont. He was on the first episode, sophomore at Sacred Heart University, and we have a new guest today, Michael DeSantis, senior at Sacred Heart University. I appreciate you coming on today. You as well for your second straight episode. So last week we talked about the Yankees and their 2020 season and that outlook and somewhat disappointment, but we're going to change it up today. We're going to talk about the National Football League. They're going into week 10 of their season, and there's a lot of really big things to talk about. So we're going to start off with some top games of the week that really caught our attention. What game has caught your attention for the upcoming week?
There are a lot of really great matchups now that we're really into kind of the heart of the season. A lot of playoff kind of pictures are starting to emerge now. I think that, Seattle is a team that I really want to look out for. I believe they're playing the Rams this week. Yeah. So Seattle, they've been kind of having a little bit of a struggle, actually in their secondary, surprisingly, for a team that was always renowned for having such a stout defense, the Legion of Boom that got them to the 2013-2014 Super Bowls. Their secondary right now is on pace to actually give up the most passing yards since, I believe, the 2011 Packers. So
we still won the Super Bowl, so you know what?
Yeah, exactly. Listen, that's the thing, though. On the flip side, offensive side of the ball, you got Russell Wilson, you got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Chris Carson when he's healthy. The offensive side of the ball is as good as it's ever been for Seattle. It's that their secondary really needs some help. I know they made a couple moves during right before the NFL trade deadline. Hopefully they could pick up some guys on waivers. People are getting cut and moved around, and with the way that COVID rules are working, I think if a vet gets cut, a team can kind of pick them up a little more seamlessly. But if Seattle can get some more secondary help and kind of extend the depth, they become a really well-rounded team. But that's not to put down the Los Angeles Rams at all. Jared Goff, I still think, is a very solid game manager out on the field. That defense is led by a guy named Aaron Donald. So I think that's going to be a really great matchup to kind of look out for.
No, definitely. And another game that has actually caught my attention is Kirk Cousins playing on Monday Night Football. He's never won on Monday Night Football. He's going up against the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. What do you think about that game?
I think it's going to be a really good rivalry game. Vikings, Bears, that entire, division, whether it's Green Bay Lions, Green Bay Vikings, Vikings Bears, Vikings Lions, the four of them just are amazing to watch when it comes down to it. And I think Vikings Bears, it's going to be close. I think they're both strong on both sides of the ball. Kirk Cousins, I'm looking to see some amazing things from him.
No, absolutely. And those are going to be two big games that catch my eye. So now we're going to talk about records and who's impressed the most. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 8-0, top of the AFC. Big Ben is balling for his age. What do you think about his performance so far?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely one of the legends left over from the 2004 draft class. It's really him, Phillip Rivers, who's now on the Colts, and Larry Fitzgerald, who's stayed true to Arizona. He's been playing phenomenal, especially for the type of throwing arm injury that he had. There were a lot of questions. That's already a tough enough injury to come back from, let alone for his age and how long he's been playing. Even though, the NFL has tried to protect quarterbacks as much as possible, we've seen it all year, guys getting injured. It's still, at the end of the day, it's football. You're going to get popped, if you're not careful. So the fact that he's been able to come back, the way the Steelers have been able to constantly find success at the wide receiver position through the draft with guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, obviously Chase Claypool, who's emerging as a fantastic rookie. Even their tight ends, guys like Eric Ebron, who I believe they brought over from Indianapolis. They have a lot of help, and their defense is amazing. T.J. Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, who was worth every single bit of draft capital that they gave up to bring him there. Bud Dupree, Casey Hayward, all those guys, they just are coming together and putting on a really fantastic showing. I think, honestly, the AFC North is completely locked up. And I'm pretty sure it's Pittsburgh's show for the most part.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into now, we're going to go into the NFC because there's a three-way tie for the top of New Orleans, Green Bay, and Seattle. But all three of those quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, they're playing at a very high level this year.
I mean, like we were talking about Ben, I think it just says something about at least Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees playing how they are, how long they've been in the game, just amazing to see both them pass, both them work running plays, their minds are some of the greatest, them, Tom Brady, couple others, off the top of my head, just to see and watch them play. When Aaron Rodgers throws the ball, he may not have a great, completion rating, above average, but maybe not a great rating, but when he makes those big game passes, they're always the ones that make the difference in the game. So just seeing, the Saints, Packers, even the Seahawks, just seeing those two be at the top is something amazing to watch.
No, absolutely. And I think it's going to be a dogfight, especially for those three teams when it comes to who's going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, because that's a really stacked division, league, NFC. So we talked about the top of the NFC. We're going to go to the bottom of the NFC, and that is the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles are 3-4-1. 3-4-1, and if the season ended today, they would host a playoff game. The NFC East has just been absolutely pathetic this year.
Yeah, I think obviously one of the worst divisions in football. Dallas, their big issue came with Dak Prescott currently being out. He only played until week 5, and he still leads some starting quarterbacks who have played the entire season in passing yards. He really was the heart and soul of that entire team, and they're clearly hurting because of him being out. Washington, I think there's a lot of growing pains. Obviously, Dwayne Haskins was not their guy. They brought in, Kyle Allen. Alex Smith is there, who I think has been having a really fantastic story, being able to come back and play. I think they're going to set up pretty long term with guys like Ron Rivera coaching them. The Giants, Saquon Barkley getting injured week 2 of the season was tough for them. Starting to see them turn the corner a little bit, which is pretty nice. I think the Judge effect is really working there, and we could see some success. Their secondary has been honestly surprising me with guys like Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, Bradbury. They have some really young stars on that team, and I think they keep adding those cornerstone pieces, so to speak. They'll be set up pretty well. Philly still has some of their old stalwarts of that 2017 Super Bowl team. You have Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, Zach Ertz. The big question, though, is will Carson Wentz be the guy? Personally, I think that they took a risk on picking a guy from North Dakota State University, even though he had all the records, the accolades. You look at who he played during his time in college. He wasn't going up against those lauded SEC defenses. He was playing kind of like a Big Sky Conference, going up against Wyoming and Jared Allen, who is kind of a different cut of a cloth. But he's too injury prone. You could say as much as you want, they don't have receiver help. I've seen a lot of overthrown balls, missed opportunities. I think his instinct still is like, I want to run first. And I don't think he's their guy. I think within the next year or so, because I think he has about 2 years left on his contract, give or take. They did give him a little bit of an extension. They should kind of be looking towards the future a little bit, and maybe just transitioning over, getting rid of some of those older guys to bring in some new blood.
Now, just to say, the wanting to run first is not necessarily a bad thing, but when you combine it with Philly's play style and how they work the ball, that's, I think, where the main thing comes, because he wants to run the ball, but ever since their Super Bowl, they've been geared as more of a passing team.
Yeah, no, I agree. My thing is, though, with the whole mobile quarterback debate, we were so polarized last year by obviously Lamar Jackson's amazing MVP run. However, you look at him playing this year, it really hasn't been that great. Like, yes, he's putting up good numbers, but he's not leading his teams to victory. We've been seeing kind of some weak spots in Baltimore as a team. And, you look at guys like Russell Wilson, who is known as being a very excellent mobile quarterback, but not necessarily a run-first guy. If you need him to make those moves happen, he'll go. I think a perfect example of it is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is on track right now, I think, to put up 4,000 passing yards and almost like 1,000 rushing yards as a quarterback. Be the first one ever to do it.
Yeah.
You know, Cam Newton, even in 2015, was never able to do something like that. And you watch him, he's always willing to pass the ball. He has great eyes and mobility in the pocket. And then if he needs to run, he is without a doubt a threat. But he makes it so unpredictable that defenses, yes, they understand we have to try to contain him, but we also know he could reach out and touch a receiver way down the field. Those guys who are just like run first, run first, run first. You know, we've been seeing Cam Newton. He hasn't been playing really that well with the Patriots. And, you know, his style of play kind of fell out of favor. Polarized the league the first couple of years, but then after that, people just started catching on. It's like, okay, yep, stop the run. And then all of a sudden he gets banged up after trying to run a couple times. And they start exposing his arm because they know he'll try to run, run, drop back into cover 2, and they have nowhere to go. You know, it's tough. I don't like a run first type of quarterback. Scan, go through your progressions, do what you have to do, and then if there's a big old chunk of field for you to run up for and get 10, 15, maybe even 20 yards, then take the opportunity.
Do you think that at some point in the near future they're going to give the ball to Jalen Hurts?
I'll take that one. I have my own opinion on that.
He played really well at Oklahoma. Obviously had that down season at Alabama, but I think they got to go somewhere in a different direction because Jalen Hurts is also that quarterback that just likes to be mobile and No,
yeah, I agree with you on that point. Just from what we've been talking, he likes to be mobile, and like you said, 2-3 years ago, that's what made a difference for teams. But now teams are catching on. It's easy, like you said, you know, the one contain the run for the 3 plays, then drop back, and they're pretty much screwed. So I think teams are catching on, and I think we need just another shakeup offensively, play-wise.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to talk about, you mentioned it earlier in your segment about the NFC, and especially the NFC East. You mentioned Cam Newton. He's taking over for Tom Brady in New England. He's working with Bill Belichick. He has not lived up to the hype so far. Everyone thought that we got the Patriots fans, we got the MVP of the league. He's coming back from his injury. He's been an absolute stud running the football, also throwing the football. But the Patriots aren't doing so well in comparison to what a lot of people thought that they would be this year.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is no longer the Patriot way, Tom Brady Patriots that we've seen dominate the NFL for the past 2 decades. They lost a lot of guys to trades. Guys like Kyle Van Noy, who was a huge part of the team, went down to Miami. A lot of guys actually opted out for the season due to COVID-19. Guys like Hightower, who was the absolute leader on that defense. They still have both McCourty brothers. They have Stephon Gilmore. Offensively, I think a couple guys also opted out for the season. And Cam Newton, yes, he had his injuries. He got cut by a team he thought loved him. I think he got really humbled and is really trying to work back to getting into kind of like his former self, you know, that form that he had from 2015. Patriots, honestly, have been playing a relatively tough schedule, and Belichick is trying to figure things out. I have all the faith in the world in Belichick. You know, one of his first gigs was with the Colts when Don Shula coached there, and then transitioned over to working, he would bounce around a little bit. But you got to remember, Don Shula went from coaching Johnny Unitas, passer, then coached that tandem backfield of Mercury Morris and Larry Zonka, and then coached Dan Marino. He went from one of the best passers of his era to a dominant dual threat backfield, and then to Dan Marino, one of the greatest passers of all time. Bill Belichick's that type of coach. He can adapt and overcome, and honestly has a ton of faith in his offensive coordinators to handle that. I think within the next 2 years, the Patriots will, without a doubt, be, a guaranteed playoff contender again. They have some of the most cap space in the league. They have some good draft capital coming in. But yeah, this year is going to be a dip, and I know for a lot of Patriot fans who boo-hoo are used to seeing the Patriots at least compete for a Super Bowl spot every year, they're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I really think that Obviously, he has Julian Edelman as his number one wide receiver. Once those two get clicking, Sony Michel gets back to his ways. James White, I think that the New England Patriots will be just fine. So, another thing I want to bring up is now Tom Brady played for Bill Belichick for 20 years. Now he's with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have they have a very stacked offense over there. They have Antonio Brown, who they just signed, Rob Gronkowski, Ronald Jones, Scott Miller, Leonard Fournette, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Tom Brady has a lot of weapons, and I think he's been playing well, but they obviously got destroyed on Monday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints. But what is your take on Tom Brady and how he's playing this year in a new environment?
I mean, coming from a new environment and coming from where he was, I think he's doing better than expected. Every team's gonna have a little slip up here and there, but like you said, he's got all these good guys that he can click with and he can give the ball to. So he's still doing what Tom Brady is known to do. That's not going to change no matter what team he goes to. Tom Brady is going to be Tom Brady. If you give him the guys that he can get the ball either in the air or on the ground and make good connections with, he's going to be fine wherever he is.
No, definitely. And I really think that obviously Brady's still getting adjusted to the new system and the whole new team down in Tampa Bay, but I really think that he and that team are up there for the NFC Super Bowl contenders. Once Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski start clicking like they have been for the past couple of weeks, they'll be playing some really good football.
I honestly think they have one of the rookie defensive players of the year with Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yes, definitely.
He's been playing lights out.
He's a steal in the draft.
He's been playing really good. Now, got a question for you, though, because, obviously you saw Tom Brady play against the Packers, and Tampa really showed out. I don't think that most recent Monday night game was going to be the trend for Tampa.
No.
Now, everybody, of course, is bringing up, the whole question of, was it Tom? Was it Bill? How do you think Tom Brady would be doing right now if he was on the Cincinnati Bengals? By some miraculous way, Cincinnati picked him up and Joe Burrow went somewhere else. How would they be doing realistically? He walked into such a great offense down there, and then with Leonard Fournette coming on, Antonio Brown coming on, Gronk coming out of retirement. They still had O.J. Howard before he got injured.
Yeah.
Would we still be seeing great numbers like we would?
He obviously makes a big difference, at the quarterback position.
Huge improvement from Jameis Winston.
No,
of course.
Trust
me,
he is he's obviously the big difference. Jameis Winston now, that was just a bust of a number one pick in the draft. That was a bust. I honestly think it depends on the weapons that he has. In New England in his last year, he did not have that many weapons with him. Obviously he is going to make a difference. I just think that he does not need those people around him, and now he has those people in Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, and you said the Cincinnati Bengals. I could see them playing well. AJ Green is there. I think they just got T. Higgins also in the second round.
Great. Yeah.
I think he would make a difference, obviously, from what they have now, but I don't think it would be Super Bowl contenders, Cincinnati Bengals.
The way I look at it with the way Tampa Bay happened, Tom walked into a fully furnished house. Now he's putting on an addition to the house.
Yeah.
He is working well with the weapons, because he could have just went in there and, really just ruined the whole thing by poor quarterback play. But we gotta give credit where credit's due. He did walk into a pretty loaded offense.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think it's like I said before, no matter what team is on, it's going to be a different story, it's going to be a different play style, but it's still going to be Tom Brady. It's not like he's just going to drop off and all of a sudden become this bad quarterback.
Which some people thought was going to happen.
Oh, believe me, I thought it was too. I was he's going to Tampa? What is going to happen here?
I think it's the new uniforms, maybe.
Yeah, no, definitely. Tom Brady is also he's also a big name to watch. And now I want to get into the MVP conversation. And my top three candidates are Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes. So Russell Wilson, he's completing 71% of his passes, 28 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Aaron Rodgers, 67.5% completion, 24 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And then Patrick Mahomes is at 66.9% completion rate, 25 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. I'm like on the fence with this discussion. I somewhat think Russell Wilson has an edge a little bit, just the way that he has been playing this year. Like him and DK Metcalf are connecting on all cylinders. But what do you guys think about the MVP discussion? Who's your front runner right now?
I mean, for me, I think it's going to be between Mahomes and Rodgers. And like I said, Rodgers knows how to put the ball where he wants it on those big pass plays. But Mahomes coming off a Super Bowl victory and playing like he has been, I think he might just have enough to squeeze out. It might just be those those short little passes are which one's going to get intercepted, which one's not, So, and just looking at the season now, I think Mahomes has just a little bit of an edge over Rodgers.
All right. What do you think?
So I'm pretty much in the same boat. Russell Wilson in his past 3 games is 1-2, and also is starting to show a little bit of a turnover issue. I know earlier I spoke about how Seattle's defense was letting up a lot of offensive points, but Russell Wilson also, because he has been trying to do a little bit too much, is starting to get to the point where now he's becoming slightly detrimental. 1-2 in their past 3 games. Before that they were going undefeated. And the turnovers are starting to pop up, whether they're fumbles or interceptions. That's been big. For me personally, I would have to say it's Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, people haven't been focusing on him as much. There's new stars in the league. We see ESPN and SportsCenter every year kind of pick 1 or 2 guys, and they just beat us to death with it. This year it's been DK Metcalf. But Mahomes is playing lights out. He had, 2 interceptions, 1 interception?
1 interception. That's really good.
Leading them to a phenomenal record so far. He's been playing at the top of his game. Just signed that huge contract. He has faith in the system. Him and Andy Reid are building such a phenomenal relationship as a coach and a quarterback. Obviously, he has great guys on offense, and he has a really great connection with each one of them in kind of a different way, whether it's Tyreek Hill or
Travis Kelce.
Yeah, Travis Kelce, of course. So for me, I would have to say the edge slightly is Patrick Mahomes. However, on the same note, it's Aaron Rodgers.
It's freaking Aaron Rodgers.
In his career, I think he's thrown 88 interceptions.
Something like
all
that.
said and done. He hasn't even cracked 100. You put his numbers compared to a lot of other quarterbacks, whether Hall of Famers retired or obviously like Breeze and Brady. 88 interceptions in a career. You could pick the moment he started till now and kind of take away a couple of the numbers. I mean, he's just playing really well this year. That Tampa Bay game, listen, it happens, but Tampa also got their due, recently with the Saints. It all depends, honestly, how their records look at the very end of the season.
No, definitely, and that will be very interesting, especially those going to be big games coming up for all 3 of these quarterbacks, and it's going to be a very interesting race to see who will win the MVP. It's going to be very interesting. So we're going to talk about the good teams and the good quarterbacks to the embarrassments of the NFL. The New York Jets, they are 0-9 to start the season, and obviously the big story is, will Trevor Lawrence declare for the draft? And if he does, the Jets can get the first pick if they keep losing under the Adam Gase system. The New York Jets are just so bad to talk about, and if I were Trevor Lawrence and I saw that the Jets had the first pick, I'm staying at Clemson. I'm going to compete for another national title. But what do you think about potentially the Jets getting the number 1 pick, and potentially if Trevor Lawrence declares for the draft, the Jets are in position to select him?
I think if he does declare for the draft, I don't think he's going to, he may do what you said and look at it and be like, I want to stay where I am. But you got to also, put yourself in the position of the Jets need all the help they can get. I could see some amazing field time if I declare for the draft and I go into this, because they need to in my opinion, go down to, bedrock and build their way back up. So it gives young guys a great chance to see a lot of field time that they may not see on other teams.
No, definitely. And another one of the biggest questions is that let's just say Trevor Lawrence is selected by the Jets in the draft. The future of Sam Darnold is now a whole big question. Just a couple years ago, they drafted him third overall. Everyone's like, this guy from USC, he's the man. We're going to win a Super Bowl with him. But he's been playing well. Like, obviously, like, he has to get through some kinks. But Adam Gase is the problem in New York. He's got to get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Adam Gase has completely shattered Darnold's confidence. I would love to see Darnold honestly go to Pittsburgh, have a good trade with them. He can get another year or two under Big Ben and get to learn. We saw Pat Mahomes sit behind Alex Smith for a whole season and really just get to soak up all this information.
Even in the beginning of his career, Rodgers sitting behind Favre.
Yeah, like I thought that was one of the worst mistakes the Jets made was starting Sam Darnold. I would have started Josh McCown, let him play, give Darnold an entire year to really just learn. Darnold's had to learn 2 systems in 3 years, one being with Todd Bowles, who's now the great defensive coordinator for Tampa Bay, and then obviously this is year 2 under Adam Gase. Going off what Mike said about going to the bedrock and working the way up, even if we do draft Trevor Lawrence, which I think most likely is going to happen, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to stay. You see guys opting out of bowl games most of the time if they're highly touted draft picks. You don't want to get injured in a bowl game. We've seen it happen too much. I mean, even Tua hurting it was it's coming up on a year or something like that since his injury at Alabama. He dropped in the draft quite a bit. There's a lot more that needs to be done for the Jets. Obviously, Gase is going to be let go at the end of the season. We're just keeping him at this point just to secure a draft pick. The big thing is we have to get rid of a lot of like upper management. I believe in Joe Douglas and what he can do as a general manager, but the Johnson brothers enabled Gase to have way too much say in the organization. We saw it happen in Miami. He got rid of Tannehill. He got rid of Kenyon Drake, who are now having really great post-careers following Miami. But for some reason, I don't know what these owners see in Adam Gase, what he says in an interview for them to just fall in love with the guy. But they give him all the resources he needs to destroy a football team. He all of a sudden gets control of the player personnel. That does not happen. Unless you're Bill Belichick, who is their pseudo GM and has the right to do so with 6 championships under his belt with one team. You don't have that right. The general manager makes player personnel moves. You coach those players. Once you stay and win, then you might have some more stay and say, well, I was really scouting this guy in college. I think he'd be a great addition to the team. Or I would really like to trade for this player. Do you think that's something that's viable? Not just saying we have to get this, we have to move him around, this, and the other thing. I'm sorry. Your track record as a coach is so piss poor. I wouldn't even let you sign my sign my name on something.
Nah, definitely. And obviously, Adam Gase will be fired at the end of the season. Like, that's just a definite. That's what all Jets fans want. Now there's always that big question of who's going to be the next head coach. Obviously, that's all up in the air. And we still have to see if the Jets might end 0-16. Will they secure that number 1 draft pick and potentially select Trevor Lawrence, quarterback out of Clemson? It's going to be a very interesting stretch to the end of the season, not only with the Jets, but the MVP race and the standings in both the AFC and the NFC. So I appreciate you guys both coming on today. This was episode 2 of BCTV, and we will see you guys next time.